I never thought a simple favor could put me on a federal watch list. This is something that actually happened to me, and there are parts of it I still don't fully understand. I moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood that felt completely safe. Clean streets, friendly neighbors, families walking their dogs at night. My neighbor lived right next door. His name was Mark. He had lived there for years, and everyone trusted him. He helped people with groceries, fixed fences, and watched homes when neighbors traveled. About a month after I moved in, Mark knocked on my door and said his internet had been shut off because of a billing issue. He asked if he could use my Wi-Fi for a few days. I didn't hesitate. I gave him the password. For the first week, everything felt normal. Then my internet started slowing down, especially late at night. Videos buffered constantly. My phone overheated even when I wasn't using it. One night I noticed my laptop fan running while the screen was closed. A few days later, my internet provider emailed me about unusually high data usage. That's when I checked my router. There were multiple connected devices I didn't recognize. Some didn't even have names. I ignored it. 2 weeks later, at 5:42 in the morning, I woke up to violent pounding on my door. When I opened it, federal agents were standing outside. They told me my internet connection was linked to an active federal investigation. They asked to come inside. They sat me at my kitchen table and asked detailed questions about my life, my schedule, and every device I owned. Then they opened a laptop. They showed me logs and timestamps tied directly to my IP address. They told me the activity involved large-scale online crimes, including identity theft and financial fraud. They said my name was already attached to the case. Then they asked one question: who else has access to your Wi-Fi? I told them about my neighbor. They immediately stood up and told me to stay inside. I watched from my window as they arrested Mark. I thought it was over. I was wrong. An agent returned and told me some of the activity tied to my internet did not come from Mark's house. It came from inside mine. They explained that Mark had installed hidden relay devices designed to avoid detection. They asked if Mark had ever been inside my house while I was gone. I remembered giving him a spare key once. They searched my home for hours. They found one device. They believed there were more. After they left, I logged into my router again. One device was still connected. Its name was Hidden Node 3. I unplugged the router. The device stayed online for 6 minutes. I moved out 10 days later. Months passed. Then the new homeowner contacted me. He said federal agents returned to the house. They told him one device was never found. Hidden Node 3 is still missing. My new job let me work from home 3 days a week, so I decided to rent out my spare bedroom on Airbnb. The first person who booked it was a guy named Mark. He was only supposed to stay for 2 nights, but he was exactly the kind of guest you hope for. Quiet, clean, and barely ever there. I work in data entry for a mid-sized logistics company, so my setup is pretty simple. I just have my work laptop, a second monitor, and a company-issued phone. It's a pretty standard gig. Mark was a traveling consultant, or so he said. He was in town for a series of meetings. He asked if he could extend his stay for another 5 nights, and I agreed. The money was good, and he was no trouble at all. On his 3rd day, he asked a weird question. He saw my work laptop on the dining table and asked what kind of security software my company used. He said he was just curious because his own company was upgrading their systems. I told him I had no idea. I just log in through a VPN and do my work. It's all pretty locked down, and I don't have access to anything sensitive anyway. He just nodded and said, "Smart. Always good to be secure." The next evening, I came home from the grocery store and found him in my office. He was just standing there, looking at my work setup. He apologized immediately, saying he heard my phone buzz and thought it might be an emergency. I felt a little uneasy, but I brushed it off. The company phone does buzz a lot with automated notifications. It was a plausible excuse, I guess. I told him it was no problem. A few days later, my internet went out. It was completely dead. The provider said it would be a day or 2 before a technician could come out. Mark was surprisingly helpful. He said he had a portable hotspot and offered to let me use it so I could work. I was grateful. It saved me from having to go into the office. I connected my work laptop to his hotspot and didn't think twice about it. I had a deadline, and I was just focused on getting my tasks done. That night, my boss, Sarah, sent me an urgent email at around p.m. The subject line was just urgent data transfer. She said a critical file transfer to a new client had failed and IT was swamped. She asked if I could manually re-upload the client database from a backup file she attached. The email looked legitimate. It came from her official address, had her usual email signature, and the tone was just as stressed as she normally is near the end of the quarter. The file was password protected, and she sent the password in a separate text. So I downloaded the zip file, entered the password, and found a single file inside. It was a large spreadsheet. I logged into our secure client portal and uploaded it to the folder she specified. It took about 10 minutes. I emailed her back to confirm it was done, and she replied almost instantly with, "Thanks, you're a lifesaver." The next morning, I woke up to my apartment buzzer going off nonstop. I looked through the peephole and saw 2 police officers. My heart sank. I opened the door, and they asked if I was me. They said they were here with federal agents and that I needed to come with them. They wouldn't say why. When I stepped into the hallway, I saw them. 2 men in dark suits with FBI jackets. They were standing outside Mark's bedroom door, which was wide open. The room was completely empty. I was taken to a gray, featureless building and put in an interrogation room. An agent named Miller and a woman named Chen sat across from me. They were all business. They didn't read me my rights. They just started asking questions. They asked about my job, about my access levels. They asked about the file I uploaded last night. That's when the panic really set in. Miller slid a document across the table. It was a printout of my company's network logs. It showed my user ID uploading a file named Full Client Ledger Q3, Zelsex, to an external IP address, not our own server. I told them about the email from my boss. I showed them the email on my personal phone. Agent Chen took my phone and looked at it. She then showed it to Miller. He didn't look impressed. He said, "Anyone can spoof an email address." They asked me about Mark. I told them everything. He was just an Airbnb guest. I told them about the internet outage and how I used his hotspot. Miller's eyes lit up. He asked for Mark's full name and the dates he stayed. I gave them everything I had. They left me in that room for what felt like hours. When they came back, their entire attitude had changed. Miller explained that my company had been the target of a corporate espionage attack. The file I uploaded wasn't a client database. It was a Trojan horse, a piece of malware that, once inside their system, mirrored their entire server financials, client lists, trade secrets, everything, and sent it to an offshore account. The damage was estimated in the tens of millions. I was just a pawn, a delivery system. The email from Sarah wasn't from her. The hotspot Mark gave me allowed him to intercept and reroute my connection. He created a dummy version of our company portal. When I thought I was uploading the file to our secure server, I was actually uploading it directly to his. Then came the first real shock. They told me Mark didn't exist. The ID he showed me was a high-quality fake. The credit card used for the Airbnb booking was stolen. He was a ghost. The second shock came when they explained why I was chosen. Agent Chen pulled out another file. It was my employee record. She pointed to a line item under my skills assessment. It listed me as having low cybersecurity awareness based on my scores on the company's annual phishing tests. I always clicked the links. They were from HR or IT and looked real. I was the perfect target because I was, according to my own company, technologically gullible. They released me late that night. I was fired, of course. My company's official statement was that I failed to adhere to security protocols. It was a quiet way of making me the scapegoat without a public lawsuit. I was lucky not to be charged, but my career was over. For months, I was a wreck. I barely left my apartment. I had to sell my car to make rent. Every time my phone buzzed, I would jump. I stopped using the internet for anything but basic job searches. About 6 months later, I got a plain white envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a cashier's check for $10,000. There was no note, nothing else, just the check. I was terrified, but I was also broke. After a week of staring at it, I deposited it. The money cleared. I tried to tell myself it was some kind of clerical error, a forgotten deposit from an old job, but I knew where it came from. It felt like a payment, like a tip for a job well done. It made me feel sick. Here's the part that keeps me awake at night. A few weeks ago, I was watching a documentary series about international cybercrime. They were profiling a shadowy group of industrial spies known for targeting mid-level logistics and tech companies. They showed a picture of one of the key suspects, a man wanted by Interpol. It was an old photo, grainy, from a security camera in a European airport. The name on the screen was something foreign and unpronounceable, but it was him. It was Mark. The documentary mentioned that this group was famous for one specific tactic. They never used brute force. They always found a willing or unwilling inside man. They called it social engineering. The narrator said their success rate was nearly 100% because people always want to be helpful. I haven't been able to sleep soundly since I saw that. I look at my new laptop, a cheap one I bought with some of that $10,000, and I wonder. The FBI told me the hotspot let him reroute my traffic, but that doesn't explain everything. It doesn't explain how he knew my boss's name was Sarah, or her writing style, or that the company was at the end of its quarter. They never found anything on my work laptop, but I just remembered something. When I was in that interrogation room, they asked about all my devices. I told them about my work laptop, my personal laptop, my phone, but I forgot one thing. The company-issued phone, the one that Mark said he heard buzzing in my office. It never leaves my desk, and I never, ever use it. It just sits there, plugged in and connected to my Wi-Fi. I wonder what else it's connected to.